thing going round about. Hey, welcome everybody to Talking Niagara this morning. It is the first day of autumn today, isn't it? Or at least part of the day.
Yep. Yep, until what about 1:29 or something?
Yeah. I heard this kind of thing, and it's like, how can you kind of say that? Well, it's the first day of autumn today. Essentially, our first day of autumn started, a few weeks back because, but then we got this reenactment of summer again,
Yeah, it's actually the fall equinox is at 2:19 p.m. today.
Yeah, I don't count the first day of autumn as being at the start of the the equinox, but the equinox is one thing, but autumn's another thing.
Well, I call it the fall anyway myself. I use the old terms. I don't know how autumn creeped in there.
Winter
is an old Anglo-Saxon word. Spring is an old Anglo-Saxon word. Summer is. Fall was too. And then
fall is an American word. Autumn is an old Anglo-Saxon word as well.
No, it isn't. It's a Latin word.
Well, where it's been in the English usage for a long time.
Yeah, it has been because it. I don't know. Somehow it crept in there, but fall was the original word.
It's what we use in England anyway. Autumn.
Well, they're wrong.
No, the Americans are wrong because they bastardize the language. Anyway, we'll get over that. All right. So Niagara farmers are opposed to scrapping the temporary foreign worker program. Of course they are, and this was brought up by Polyev last week, wasn't it?
It says here, Americans primarily used the word fall because beginning in the 16th century, English speakers started shortening phrases like fall of the leaf to fall. So fall of the leaf was the usual expression, creating a simple description of the name of the seasons. As colonists brought these terms to North America, fall gained popularity and became dominant in the American English, while autumn, derived from Latin and French, became preferred in the British Empire. So there you go.
There you go. And Canada is part of the British Empire, so there you go.
Yeah. Well, also most of our settlers came from the U.S., so.
Yeah, anyway. Okay, so Niagara farm workers oppose the scrapping of the temporary workers program, which was proposed by Pierre Polyev, who's basically saying, that we need to scrap the program because we need to get more Canadians to work.
I think he's going about it the wrong way here. We do know that during the Trudeau years, they brought in a lot of temporary workers, and the system was abused.
Yeah,
what happened was
massively abused. Yeah.
Yes. So we brought in a lot of temporary workers, and of course, they were being paid less. They were being paid less than people here would normally have gotten. And so employers started to prefer them over native-born people or citizens of Canada because they could pay them less. And Poilievre's looking back to that. I think that's largely being taken care of. But what is alarming about what he is saying is the agricultural industry is the one that's being alarmed, thinking we cannot keep our businesses going without cheap overseas labor, not immigrant labor, but temporary workers. Now, to be fair to Polyev, he talked about, as the way I looked at it, he talked about a standalone operation for agricultural workers. So separate them from the other temporary workers, which that's largely being done. And according to the article,
Yeah, there's no reason.
But according to the article, I will say that as far as agricultural workers are concerned, it hasn't. This particular aspect of the temporary workers has not been abused. The numbers are fairly consistent.
Yeah,
year after year.
And Polyev's right in saying that 3/4 of temporary foreign workers receive below average wages, which means that they are taking jobs from Canadian people that need it the most. However, what do we, and the challenge here is that you've got a situation whereby you see in the farms, basically the use of the foreign temporary worker program has long assisted the farms and farm labor, because local Canadians very often don't want to get into that, right? Whereas there's no way that, for example, temporary foreign worker programs should be used to man factories or or other facilities where jobs are the primary thing and always have been, right?
I'll go back to something they did in the States, and I wish I could cite the instances a little bit more clearly. But for a while there was a lot of push against temporary farmer workers in the U.S. And what they did was then they tried to take university students and other students to man those jobs in the summer for farm laborers. They figured that was the way to do it. That was the way to limit the amount of foreign workers coming across the border. And so they're going to put students in it. Well, it didn't work. The students embraced the idea at the beginning, and they all went out to the farms. But once the work started, they didn't want anything to do with it for very long. Very few of them sustained their employment and went to get easier jobs, which makes it very clear that the average person won't work that kind of labor.
Well,
tedious, hard, long hours for that kind of pay. But who will is people from Honduras or the Caribbean or other Central American countries. They'll do it because they're farmers anyway. Like a lot of the people they bring up here are already farmers. So they already are very used to long, hard days of work. And they're going to make money here that they can't make back home. So as far as agricultural workers go, they come, they do the work, and they go home.
Yeah, but again, students had summer jobs. I remember one of the summer vacation jobs that I had once I reached a certain age was I worked in a laundry. Oh my God, that was hot. That was steaming hot work, right? So I'm folding towels or blowing air into boiler suits and things like that. So there's a lot, and boring work, hard work, hot work in the middle of summer, but it got me a lot of money.
Yeah, but you didn't make a career out of it, did you?
No, I didn't make a career out of it. It was a job that I did for one summer. They were hiring. They wanted summer relief, right?
Well, that's a whole lot, yeah. But you see, the problem here is consistent labor to do the job. And they cite here in the article of a fella they're having a little bit of a party for in one of the farms because he's been there for 17 years. He's finally going to retire. He's taken the money he's made here and he's bought a tractor and he's bought some land in the place he came from. And now he'll be self-sufficient and his family will be too, or at least more sufficient, and that gives you the win-win situation that we have going on here.
Yeah.
We bring up an agricultural worker that's willing to work for the money they get, and that is a plus for them, and it's a plus for us. We cannot sustain that market with our domestic folk here, so that's a win-win. So but like I said, to be fair to Polyev, he did speak of agricultural standalone temporary worker. But the idea of temporary workers, I think it's already mostly been addressed because of the very poor way in which the Trudeau government launched it. And they were very unorganized. They didn't seem to be able to think like 2 steps ahead, and they swamped the country with temporary workers, and then it cost a lot of the country to get rid of them, and then like and so on. And how many of those temporary workers actually left, and went back home, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, we don't want a situation here that we have in the United States where they use illegal labor all over the place. Like, we don't want illegal labor. But temporary workers, if they are properly vetted and directed in the right places, like agricultural work, yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it if you can't fill the jobs otherwise. But what he's saying there is true. But he is talking about a situation that is, I believe, is largely in control right now. You know, about temporary workers, swamping. So for about those temporary workers that still exist here, I don't know if they've got rid of them, if that's under control, but it seems to be, because it doesn't pop up in the news as much anymore.
Yeah. Okay. Before Mike is saying, before anything is scrapped, you have to have a substitute. Yeah. And I think that's essentially what we've been talking about there. We need to teach how important agricultural work is. Yeah, absolutely. I remember used to be the kid in my school that would actually go off to France for the summer. His parents would go there. They'd work on the vineyards in France.
Yeah, that's tough work, man.
Yeah. All right. COVID should have shown us how important agricultural worker being our country people is so important. Yeah. In other words, it is slave labor. Yeah. It's hard job. Student jobs when we were young are now being done by adults needing work. That's true as well. You see, essentially, what happened is that though the laundry had a additional need for additional people, and we're talking of an industrial sized laundry here. So because of the additional ships that used to come into the port in the summer, they used to need that those additional people on board in that laundry, right? That's why it was available as a job, and they were always available as jobs. I did it 1 year, and only 1 year.
Well, yeah. So the very idea, though, is temporary workers. Like, you weren't a temporary worker; you were a domestic. You were a citizen of the country.
It was another country.
If you needed that job, and a temporary worker came in and was making less money than you, and the employer decided, okay, I'm going to use this temporary worker instead of you. All right, here's Peter the student. He needs a job, but he's not going to get a job because I'm going to bring a temporary worker in here that's going to make less money, and it's going to make more money for me by giving him less. And I will do that for all the other students there, and I will replace as many of the workers I do have with temporary workers. That's the situation which Polyev is talking about. Yeah. Polyev is worried, but I think that's largely been addressed, but maybe not entirely. But it's a good point. But it has nevertheless alarmed the agricultural business, the agro business of of Canada, and of course down here in a big way, because there's Karen Fraser. I haven't seen her for a while. Hi, Karen.
Yeah.
So
I got one comment here which probably ought to be discussed. Kip Finn is saying that get those on welfare to go out to the farms.
Easier said than done.
Easier said than done. A lot of those people who got disabilities wouldn't be able to do that work anyway. It's hard work.
Well, there's a lot of people on welfare. Of course, we know that it could be doing some work, but then again, you've got a lot of single moms on welfare or aspects of welfare. Then you're going to have to find ways in which their children are being kept and so on. So when a temporary worker comes up here, they come prepared to work and they don't have any baggage. You know what I mean? They have a place to stay, they work, and then they go home. It'd be nice to get convicts out there. It'd be nice to get welfare people out there to work, but that doesn't usually work.
Sure.
It doesn't come up efficiently because a convict might not work very hard.
I'm not so sure.
Somebody on welfare may drag their ass and start claiming they have the right this and they have the right to do that. If it was, I would love to see that. I would love to see welfare people out there actually kind of earning their keep until they could get their feet on the floor better, but that's a can of worms. That's very hard. What you do need is sustained, reliable labor, particularly in the farms. You can't.
Yeah, and for example, disability people on disability wouldn't be able to do that work.
Well, I'm not talking about the ones on disability. I'm talking about, and that's an entirely different thing.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't be able to work anyway a lot of the times, no matter what. But there are a lot of people on welfare that aren't disabled, and we could get them in there. But one of the reasons why a lot of people are on welfare is really not employable a lot of the times. And I'm not talking just by disability, but because they're really not that good at it. And that's one of the reasons why they're on welfare. So in order to take a person and then force them to work on farms, it sounds good, but I don't think it's practical.
Yeah.
I don't think the farmer would get a sustained labor force.
Yeah. Okay. While we're on farms, moving on to something else. There's a farm here that's reporting 500 pounds of apples were stolen from their orchards. That seems excessive.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with people. So this farm has a pick your own kind of thing. So the first crop of apples are out, and okay, you can come in and you can pick your own, get them cheaper that way. But what they found out is up to 500 pounds just in the very early part of their picking season. 500 pounds of apples will be stolen or attempted to be stolen. And what they do is they find them, people come in and they have backpacks, or baby buggies is a big thing. Baby buggies, then they start filling up the baby buggy to try to sneak out more apples. I mean, what is it with people? Really, apples? You're going to stick it to an apple farmer? What's the matter with you? Now, the baby buggies are a good thing to steal, because I was behind in line once at one of the grocery stores, and the family who had a baby buggy, and they had a regular cart or buggy, to put their groceries in, and grocery cart, and they put those on the belt, but they had a whole bunch of other stuff stuffed in the baby buggy. So they were ahead of me, so I kind of flagged the teller and pointed to the baby buggy, and she couldn't see the stuff that was in there, and they weren't going to put it on the belt. So she says, "Oh, do you have anything in there?" You know, and she's going, "Oh, we forgot this," and they start loading the stuff from the baby buggy onto the belt. So baby buggies are one of those things, it seems, that are good for stealing because people don't suspect that they are a vehicle of theft.
Yeah.
Apples are
Actually,
gross.
baby buggies are. I saw this. I saw this person in a store 5 or 6 years ago before COVID, and they're going around. The family's going around. One in the cart, one in the buggy, one in the cart, one in the buggy. And that's only in the aisle that I happen to be in the same aisle as them. I'm kind of shaking my head in disbelief that people would do that.
But here's an apple farmer. Seriously?
Yeah.
Seriously? So
And hey,
he says he doesn't want to be like that, but you can't bring backpacks. You can't bring any kind of baby buggy or any other thing like that now to pick apples. So if you come with a backpack, you got to leave it there. If you come with a baby buggy, no, you got to leave an attendant with a baby buggy, and somebody else has got to go get the apples. Seriously, people are stealing like that from an apple farmer.
and hey,
where is your sense of honor?
and I know that if you go and pick apples, you might eat one or two, but that's one or two.
I might eat 3 or 4.
You're probably going to.
I'm very partial to apples.
Well, I know, but you're going to get sick of one after more than one or two. I think on average, most people will anyway. Right. So realistically, they know there's a certain amount of loss, but it's par for the game. They already know that's going to happen. Stealing of this sort of nature is completely out of order.
Yeah, so he's the farm is in West Montrose, Ontario, and it's the orchards, SHUH orchards, and it seems to be a change of policy that they've had to come across. And he says, "I don't want to be like this, but I'm going to have to kind of inspect your baby. No more baby buggies, no more." Seriously, 500 pounds of apples. That's a ton. It's not a ton of apples. Of course, it's about 1/4 of a ton of apples, but
yeah, it's a lot of apples.
But it's a lot of apples. And why do you think it's like, why would you want to stiff a farmer, for crying out loud? If you're going to steal from something, steal from Elon Musk or somebody that can afford it. But why stiff a farmer?
I wouldn't be
Seriously.
I wouldn't be stealing from anybody, whether it's Elon Musk or a farmer, Sure, I've gone to these eat your own, pick your own orchards in the past. Not usually apples. One we used to do when I was younger was actually strawberries and plums was my favorite.
Oh, well, I love all kinds of fruits, but in any case, you're stiffing a farmer.
Yeah.
Come on now. When you push that baby buggy into the farm and you stuff it up with apples, and you've got a basket where you pay for that basket, but you've got another half basket full. Poor little Junior in the baby buggy's got to fight for space with a bunch of apples. Come on.
Yeah.
I just don't get it. I mean, there is no dignity. There is no. Where is your sense of if you want to be a thief, steal from wealthy people, be a Robin Hood type of person maybe, but Jesus, apples from a farmer. Seriously, that guy is employing people. You know what I mean? Don't forget that. If you take 500 apples, if that carries on for the rest of the year, you might have to lose one employee. So geez, and that employee most likely will be a temporary worker, an agricultural worker. So I don't know.
Well,
actually, I don't understand the temptation.
A lot of those farms actually don't have those foreign temporary workers because they don't need anybody to do the picking, do they?
I don't. Well, yeah, they do, because only one aspect of it is pick your own.
Mm. Yeah. All right. So moving on. So there's a kind of silver lining in Hamilton about this trade war, the trade war there, bringing thousands of jobs to the shipyard in Hamilton.
It's a possibility. Basically, what the article says is the trade war we have with the United States may have a silver lining in the fact that it'll bring a lot of shipbuilding jobs to Hamilton, and I don't know how they were able to make that connection between the trade war and the shipbuilding. It's more like the change in what the Canadian government is doing for its defense. So there are three main shipyards for the Navy out there, but the one in Hamilton is mostly a shipyard that fixes stuff and has tried in the past to try to gain contracts for the military, and has been unsuccessful so far. But there's been a difference. There's been a ramp up in the need of corvettes. They can make corvettes. They're only 100 meters long. So they're about half the size of a Laker, but they're essential for patrolling and so on. As soon as I get the article up here, I'll get it.
Well, and biggest challenge, of course, is that the trade wars bring uncertainty. But what they're looking at is that that we have a response, that we get something better done. So that's the question is, like, what is being built, but it's it. But how does it help? Is it?
Well, it is refocusing on domestic producers. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
So in no way can I see that they would have given a lot of these contracts to the U.S. However, the overall idea that they're going to refocus on manufacturing in Canada, and the new need for more military hardware, and in this case the Navy, it shows that the Ontario shipyards of Hamilton may get a crack at it. Now, one of the things they have in their advantage is they have capacity. They have a lot of space in which to expand and operate. So and some of the bigger shipyards are already maxed out. So this is one thing in their favor. Another thing is the Ontario government has put a lot of money into that area, trying to expand it and trying to bring up the skill level. This is you didn't have much problem when Port Weller was going and all that. They didn't have a whole lot of trouble finding enough skilled people to work on the ships there. They now do.
Well, the interesting thing is, of course, once you launch a ship, once you've got you've built the ship and you launch the ship, you still need still need a shipyard to actually fit the ship, don't you? Because that, what you've launched off the launch pad is basically a bare bones ship. It's got nothing in it. It's got no furniture. It's got no, it's got the very basic of equipment in it, and even has to be towed by a tug to another yard that's going to do all the fitting. So doesn't even have the steering equipment for the what do you call it, for the captain. It's got
they're going to build the ship. They'll build it completely. But basically, the main part of it is the big hull and all that kind of thing. So that's the main thing they're looking at here. It's going to consume a lot of steel. Yeah, it needs a lot of workers, welders. I think even parts of it still riveted. I'm not sure, but you're going to need welders. You're going to need there's probably a lot of Boilermaker type guys who know how to work steel and shape it, and then plant it. I'm not so sure. You would need Boilermakers too for the engines and all that in and around there. So there's a lot of hard work. And there's a skill level.
Yeah, you got to fit the ships with all this new stuff, right?
Yeah, and there's a skill level required. And one of the impetuses here is by the Ontario government is trying to supply money to train workers for those jobs. They'll be good jobs. And if the contracts come, you're looking at 10, 15, 20 years down the line, you can sustain. What they're looking for basically is it's a peak and valley type of system. When the contract comes in to fix a ship, they have the ship, they fix it. I know because at Port Waller dry docks there, we had a lot of our millwrights working there when the ships would come in. I actually didn't work on the ships. I actually worked in a massive machine shop there trying to level up an enormous lathe. We had to use optics, and then we had to worry about when the sun came in that would change the optics, everything. It was really kind of cool. But anyway, it was a long slog of a work, and it was very hard work, but it paid well. And it takes skilled people to do it. Yeah. And so part of what the Ontario government has done is invested money in the training. Now, we do have that potential. There are a number of ships, not just big warships, but other kinds of ships and things like that can be done in this area here. So the trade war, I would kind of rephrase that. The insistence that by Trump that we have up to 5% for our NATO or for our defense. Actually, he was right on that one, and that's what we're doing basically. And we can see the need because of the aggressive actions of Putin normally. So, and the need to protect our Arctic and our other coastlines. So I think basically it wasn't so much the trade war, except that we're not using. I don't think we would use American labor anyway. Now it's important to point out that the shipyard is working with an Italian shipbuilder in this particular initial phase, which is kind of interesting. I didn't really know the Italians had a whole lot. Well, they would have, I suppose, because they would.
Yeah. They have their own boats, of course they do.
Yeah, but I wouldn't have expected an Italian shipbuilding company to be the one that they teamed up with.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to find the name of the company.
Yeah.
I don't know. Can you find it?
No, I didn't. I don't know the name. Unfortunately, I don't have access to the articles. I get at it through another way.
Yeah, shipbuilding yards. Yeah, it's part of the commitment to ramp up NATO defense spending. So I can't really think as part of the trade war at all. It's something we would have had to do anyway, trade war or not.
Yeah. Well, in fact, actually,
ramping up. Fincantieri is the giant shipbuilding giant. Fincantieri is who they're going to work with.
Yeah. Okay. But therefore, ships that the Canadian Navy is using.
Yeah, and eventually they'll do it 100% on their own. Right now, they need the help of Fincantieri. So we'll see. We'll see how that works. Yeah. I'm a jobs guy. The more jobs, the better. You know what I mean? The more skilled trades we have, the more of that. Like everybody thinks college, but I'm jobs. Get skilled workers out there, get them trained, get them in there. And Karen says a ferry crossing boats contract could have gone to Hamilton instead of China. Yeah. Kara's bringing up something there that 4 ferry boats that Canada ordered could have got to Hamilton, but they sent the contract to China instead. I'm not so sure we'll do that too much anymore.
Yeah, that's something we've got to review and make sure we don't do again.
Well, we're always looking for the best price, but because of globalization and the geopolitics that has entered the economy of every country, each country now has to guard its own manufacturing to a certain degree. Otherwise, it will be vulnerable to trade wars and trade disruptions and things like the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anything else about the shipyards?
No, just happy that across my fingers that many a lad will get a good job, be trained in a good trade. I imagine lots of young ladies as well, but in that kind of work, it's mostly men because it's heavy and hard.
All right. It's an interesting one. We always bring these ones up. Mind on Strength. This is a group of friends who are walking from Toronto to the Niagara Falls US border this year. They've done other walks in the past to raise money for good causes.
Yeah, seriously. This is a kind of a thing, a walk. When I read this, I was reminded of William O'Sullivan's long walk from Niagara, from Welland, all the way to Ottawa. A much more magnificent effort, in my view, and it was for the children abused by Catholic priests, and to bring the government more, push the government into doing more action. In this particular case, it's a bunch of guys from Lawrence Heights, and they are walking here all the way, and it took them 69 days to get here.
No, 69 hours.
No.
It says 69 hours. They were 141 kilometers.
Oh, yeah, probably, 69 hours. Sorry. Yeah, sorry. Wouldn't it be 69 days? Yeah, it would be 3 months. No, yeah, 69 hours of walking for 100 and some kilometers. And it's basically a fundraising thing and a demonstration, basically. It's kind of like Mike Strange running across Canada or Kerry Fox, that kind of thing. It's a demonstration of a support of a certain area or community or cause. In this particular case, these guys are trying to get the money into Lawrence Park to be able to help sustain some of the young people there, to keep them off the streets, to keep them away from gangs, to try to bolster their confidence by providing them with shoes and all number of things that is listed there.
Yeah, they've done this. This is the second year they've done this. Last year they did 49. They did slightly less kilometers. This year they went 20 extra kilometers, I think, because they started at Yorkdale Shopping Centre and to get to Toronto. And basically they're just talking about the area. There's lots of struggles of people, and they're just wanting to do something in order to change the system up there.
141 kilometers.
Yeah.
69 hours. And only 2, like there's a bunch of them that started out, but only 2 completed it. They couldn't handle it. So basically what they're doing is the initiative Back to School fundraisers, which are a huge component of its programming, help to provide essentials, sneakers and clothing, haircuts and braids, okay, grocery cards and emergency food boxes. I don't know, braids. Do you want to spend money on braids? But anyway, it's up to them. Mental health resources, okay, emergency food boxes and scholarships and field trips for the youth and community. So aside from the braids, I think it seems pretty good. But a haircut too, you can't. I don't know. Maybe the kids can't afford a haircut. Who knows?
Well, I don't know. I don't know about the use of braids myself, but hey, it's a girly thing, right?
I don't know, unless you're a Rasta man.
I don't know. I don't know, and I'm not gonna. And well, let's leave it at that. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, so they finished at the U.S. Niagara Falls border. I would imagine that they had a support crew with them to help them get that walk done.
I imagine because there was a handful of them and only two really made it. So
Yeah.
the others that couldn't make it, they must have had to be rescued by somebody in a car.
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. Okay. So the Pentagon is stepping up its media restrictions.
Yeah, I don't know the real significance of it. What they're saying is nothing classified. So you can nothing classified or unclassified could be printed or reported unless it has been approved. You can understand the classified stuff, but the unclassified stuff, no, I can't understand that at all. I think that's kind of an infringement of journalistic freedom.
Yeah.
If it's unclassified, it should be. And also, it's a taxpayer-funded government. Basically, the Pentagon is taxpayer funded, so as much of what goes on there should be available. The stuff, not the secret stuff, of course, but as much possible. Anything unclassified should surely be fair game because it's unclassified. It's not important. But what they're saying, that's the only thing I can understand them saying classified. If you start printing classified material, you're putting us in a problem area there. That's interfering with our work. That could even jeopardize our work. But the unclassified stuff, I don't get that part.
Well, there's been a whole thing about this weekend where Donald Trump has been dictating to the press what may or may not be said in the press.
Yeah, he's starting
that. Over this Jimmy Kimmel affair.
Well, yeah, this is something that's been going on for a long time. He's been putting a lot of stress on the press, and he's using the FCC to put that stress on it. These big, like ABC canceled Jimmy Kimmel, and the people on the right say, oh, well, he was canceled because he wasn't making a whole lot of money. But people on the left are saying, wait a minute, the FCC has weighed in here and has actually threatened the networks. Yeah. And the FCC are the ones that rubber stamp any kind of merger. ABC needed a merger coming up, and the White House was not happy with Jimmy Kimmel. So ABC dutifully cancels Jimmy Kimmel because they want this merger to go through, and it can only be approved by the FCC. So if the FCC is taking its orders from Trump, which obviously it is, it's not going to approve that merger. So you have to say, oh, we agree with you completely about the Kimmel thing, so we're gonna dump him. That same thing now the Trump has threatened all the other comics on late night TV or anywhere else, comics, and saying they don't have any talent and they've got to go. So every network that might want a merger or might need cooperation of the FCC sees that this is problematic, and so they're just going to fall in line.
Hmm. Well, he's already targeted 2 extras that he says need to go. All right. I'm not a person
Fallon and Myers.
Yeah. I'm not a person who would watch this type of show anyway. I used to when I was younger, not so much today. But I just find it disinteresting. I guess my tastes have changed.
Yes, I would say that I never I never really did like those shows much at all. I thought they were pretty boring, actually. Their monologues, everything. I really never really thought that there were much. I'll watch a clip of Jon Stewart once in a while, but still, I don't go looking for that stuff because to me, it's it has its purpose, but I don't really get too entertained by any of it. But they are very important political voices with comedy. So even if you don't like them, and that's the basic premise here is you don't like it. Perhaps it's non-factual. Perhaps it's even hate speech. But hate speech and bad facts and distasteful content, depending on your opinion, is all protected free speech.
Yeah.
So this is a very clear indication that the FCC is going to use its ability, its power to approve things like mergers as a cudgel against the programming a certain network might have.
Yeah.
And who are the voices against this? It's Tucker Carlson, Ben Shapiro. These are right-wing voices over and over again because they see that they're next. If they don't approve the government the way the government wants them to approve them, then they're going to be the ones that are going to be dictated to.
Well,
and Ben Shapiro says, well, the shoe will be on the other foot one day, and then here we go. So the Tucker Carlsons and the Ben Shapiros will then be pushed off the airwaves. They see this as a threat to themselves. They see what's happening. So even Ted Cruz, who is I could never rarely agree with that guy on anything. He up until now he's bowed down to Trump, even though Trump made terrible comments about insulting comments about his wife. And then when Trump won the election, Ted Cruz bows down in all things. But in this particular case, he found a spine. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, and actually, the concern that I think is being expressed by some people out there is that how close this is becoming to curtailing the right of free speech.
It's little by little by little. It is. They're not directly going after it, but they're like, the government's not saying stop that. The government's saying, oh, we don't like that, and we have the power of the FCC. How about that? You might not get your merger. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You want approval for that merger? Well, we don't like it too much anymore. And we think it doesn't serve the public interest. So politics is leaking into places like the FCC, where it shouldn't be. And the FCC chairman himself has talked about free speech over and over again when the Democrats are in, bewailing the fact that free speech is not protected well enough, and then he does something like that by threatening networks. See it our way, or you might not get your merger.
And the other thing about the Pentagon, what happened with the Pentagon, is they've been evicting news organizations and imposing series of restrictions upon the press, banning reporters from entering a lot of the Pentagon. Well, I wouldn't expect you would get very far in the Pentagon anyway, but other than the press, the press area anyway. Would have been
they're afraid of whistleblowers and leaks and all that kind of thing, but it's more than that. They'll screen the reporters to the ones they want.
Yeah,
you saw how in the White House press gallery there, somebody used the words Gulf of Mexico instead of doing the Gulf of America, so they're thrown out. They're not allowed to be there anymore. If you don't ask questions that Levitt likes, you'll get pushed out, or at least not pointed at to ask a question. So you can see the power that they're using. Yeah, I think Trump's time is almost done. It's just a matter of when are the Republicans going to get rid of him. I think more and more Republicans see that he could kill the Republican Party completely, or even kill the democracy of the United States, some are fearing. So I think what's going to happen is the Republicans are going to try to sideline him the best they can. He's becoming more and more an embarrassment every day. and they can't, even though they're terrified of the guy, more and more of them are feeling unsure about the dude. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, and talking about that, and talking about being unsure about the dude, Trump confuses Azerbaijan with Cambodia and claims that he stopped a war between Armenia and Azerbaijan. He said he stopped a war between Cambodia and Armenia. And they're thousands of miles apart, you know.
Yeah, so the Albania thing, okay, let's get that right out of there. So, okay, the best we could do, well, we saw that Cambodia and Thailand were having problems, right?
Yeah.
They were not going to go to war. They had a friction on their border and they started throwing bombs at each other, maybe a little bit, but they were not going to go to full-scale war. But he went in there and he said, oh, he stopped them from that having a war. Now the Thais and the Cambodians dutifully said, oh, sure, because they know that by not saying so, they might not get a good trade deal. So so yeah, Cambodia was having frictions with Thailand, but any day now Albania was going to invade Cambodia. That's a little bit rich. I think he meant when he talked about the Azerbaijan Armenian war, the bit about the Nagorno-Karabakh part of of those two countries. He put Azerbaijan and Armenia, right? And Albania, or Azerbaijan and Albania. He did Albania again on that one. So yeah, he can't get it. Like, he's just speaking off the top of his head.
Again, these are not, you know, a name like Azerbaijan. I've said it a dozen times so that I say it right. But a name like Azerbaijan is not an easy one that rolls off the tongue. It's from an odd part of the world. But like Cambodia, I would never confuse. I'm not so sure I would confuse Azerbaijan with Cambodia. But again, I'd also say, I'm going to say to it on his defense that he's got a lot to think about, a lot going through that brain on an average day. So maybe he does muddle things up every once in a while.
Well, he muddles things up a lot. And a lot of that can be forgiven because, yeah, for what you said, you know, but seriously, when you're talking about a country, you get the name right. When you talk about a country, Lesotho, you know, like who nobody has ever heard of. Well, I've heard about it. Lots of people have heard about it. Yeah, you know, that kind of thing. So he's an ignorant man. Let's put it that way. He's a very ignorant man. Ignorant. His forte may be real estate deals or something like that, but he's tremendously ignorant on just about everything else. Like, I don't know. Like, it sounds, anytime he opens his mouth, I thought, did this guy even go to high school?
Yeah. But again, remember, Dave, Americans have got a warped view of the world, and many Americans wouldn't even, you know, the limit of their geography is knowing the shapes of the states. You know, what shape is Utah, etc., etc. They wouldn't know where Kenya was in relation to Nigeria, or you know, or how far, clearly in this instance, how far Cambodia and Armenia are apart.
Well, I don't know. If I went to the States and says, well, you know, we won the war against Albania, they'd probably say, oh, congratulations, Ken. I'm glad you won the war against Albania. Then, you know, so that, yeah, you're right. The Americans are extremely egocentric. This is a flaw of their educational system. Yeah. They are appallingly ignorant about just about everything. And I have to say that Canadians are nearly as bad, a lot of them. That, I mean, the basic things of the world and basic, you know, everybody's ignorant. Let's put it this way: everybody's ignorant to a certain degree. But what
Yes.
you try to do is work on that. Like the American ignorance. 50% of the Americans thought Saddam Hussein was involved with Al Qaeda. Those two were arch enemies.
Yeah.
You know, they went to war against Iraq when they should be going to war with Al Qaeda, but they conflate the two things.
Yeah.
So I believe that the American politicians make use of American ignorance in enormous ways.
Yeah.
If you look at like Fox News or even CNN or any of these big programs, they're counting on American ignorance. You know, politicians especially.
Yeah. And you see, border spats between Armenia and Azerbaijan don't necessarily lead to war anyway. Many of these nations have had border spats ever since they left the Soviet Union.
Well, I've had a couple of bad spats, wars actually, between, and it's about the Nagorno-Karabakh enclave. It's a bit of what was Azerbaijan, but it was all Armenian. So the Armenians took it, but the Azerbaijan took it back.
Yeah.
A couple of years ago now.
Well,
this conflict continues between those two countries.
Yeah.
It was ethnically Armenian inside Azerbaijan, connected to Armenia. Armenia took it. When they were stronger, Azerbaijan got beefed up by Turkey, and they took it back a couple of years ago. This is a conflict that needs to end because all it is more people getting killed. So,
yeah.
But yeah, definitely the West can step in there and try to bring things down. Russia was one of the countries who had some effort there that were supporting the Armenians, but they pulled their support away from the Armenians because they needed the support of Turkey. So, and Turkey was taking the side of the other side. The Azerbaijanis are Turkic people, so the country of Turkey has sort of a cultural relationship with them. They're Muslim, they're Turkish. I don't know, but that neither here nor there. The president hardly knows where is what in the world, and unfortunately, he's an example of most Americans or even Canadians who really don't have a sense of what's going on out there. And if you don't, I encourage you. Like, there's no shame in not knowing something, but find out. If somebody starts talking about a war between Albania and Cambodia, and you think, oh, wow, Trump's not a great guy, but he sure stopped that war against Albania and Cambodia. Look it up. Where is Albania? What is Albania? What is Cambodia? Yeah. Those kind of things. Kind of do something to improve.
Immediately, you see, I'm kind of going, well, how can there be a war between Armenia and Cambodia? Because Cambodia is on the Vietnam border, even if I get nothing else right about Cambodia. I know
Cambodia and Thailand are its main. Cambodia, Thailand, and Laos are its main.
Cambodia's. I remember, of course, you would remember Cambodia from the Vietnam War days. Right, at least that's.
Oh yeah, and the Khmer Rouge stuff, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I know Armenia is actually is a former Soviet Union state. So, how can the two possibly be at war?
Well, yeah.
It's like declaring. It's like declaring. It's not like the Second World War where Britain would declare war upon Japan. Because you have to. It's part of doing the business in the Second World War. But generally speaking, if Britain declared war on Japan right now, everybody would go, "You what? Why would there be
Yeah.
a war between the two? Because they're nowhere near each other, right?
Yeah. But I think ignorance is the main thing here.
Oh, yeah, get over your.
But I
learn.
think it's a little bit overstated, though. The left is jumping all over this, saying that this is a indication of Trump's dementia and all that, I don't think so. I think it's a demonstration of his ignorance, and I have real problems with the left press blowing things up like this, because that's what's got them in trouble in the first place. That's what lost them credibility in the first place. Is their hyperbole and their pointing out little petty little things. I have a problem with that. Sure, he misspoke. It doesn't mean he has dementia. It does mean he's an ignorant guy, but we know that he's ignorant and about the world, but that doesn't mean he's losing his mind or is affected by dementia. So I have a real problem with the left press going after petty stuff when there are so many more important things that they could amplify. And it's to them as a game. And unfortunately, with the left press and the right press, it's a stupid game. And I'm very, very frustrated with this game they play, going after petty little details of everyone else, or excluding one thing to go after another, and not really telling the whole story or putting the full clip. And this is both sides of the media. And this is what I think is, Trump wouldn't know one place from another. He couldn't find Africa if he headed east, southeast right now. He'd still miss it somehow. But I don't know. He's just a ignorant fellow, but he's a reflection of the American people, and I would say Canadian people too. I'm kind of appalled at our own ignorance on a lot of matters here. I mean, I had a really good education. I knew where the world was. I knew where every continent was. I knew I knew history. I knew at least European history and some of other history. I knew cultures. I knew countries. I had a fairly basically good education. That I don't see that being coming out any longer. I mean, appalling stuff and presumptions about other people.
Yeah. Well, you see, again, well, that's anyway. We're kind of done for today, I think. Right. I couldn't tell you the shapes of American states, but I sure as heck can, know where most of the world is. Some of the newer nations like Azerbaijan, I couldn't tell you what the capital was, but the older nations, I knew all of those sorts of things.
I think it's Baku, isn't it?
You're probably right. I just couldn't name it off the top of my head, but you're probably right.
I don't know if I'm right. That just popped into my head, so I could be wrong.
No, when I was younger,
but I can't tell you the capital of Armenia. I forgot that one.
Well, when I was young, I used to know. One of the things I knew is I knew all the capitals of every nation in the world.
Right. And now you don't. So is that dementia?
So many new nations. No, it's just we got so many new nations and I've got so many other things. It wasn't. I had this challenge that we used to do this geography quiz every once in a while, and when it was capitals, my hand would be in the air all the time.
Well, there is that story that when a guy was asked what the capital of Ontario was, he said, "Yes, I know it." And they said, "What is the capital of Ontario?" Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, though, so basically look, gotta do the Gaza thing.
Yeah.
Trump is being completely unable to stop that horror. He's been unable to unstop the war that he was going to fix in one day. I mean, nobody believed he was doing it in one day, but he thought they might be able to get it in a month or 2 months or 3 months. That's just getting worse and expanding. And he's been completely impotent there, completely brushed aside by Putin, and he's completely being brushed aside by Xi. He's got problems with Modi, all that. But in Gaza, it's getting worse every day. They're bombing. Canada and Australia and Britain have recognized Palestine. And that's one of the things we can do in the West to stop this. Now, Netanyahu has claimed that he's going to, as a result of this, he's going to get revenge by creating even more settlements in the West Bank. Well, we know he's going to do that anyway. So it's
not new.
Yeah, not new. He's going to do that anyway. He has been doing that.
Yeah.
And I don't know, even in Israel, there's a whole lot of backlash, but he seems to have all kinds of power, and Trump will not, and the United States will not stop him from bombing the crap out of the place. They're the one and only power that can, and they're letting them do what they want to do. Most of the politicians are afraid of AIPAC and the Israeli lobby, so they're not going to say nothing about it. There are a few brave politicians that will step to the front, like Massey.
Well, of course, Donald Trump just wants Trumpistan, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does in a way. Yeah, yeah. So if they said they're going to call the Gaza Strip Trump Strip, then he may do something about it. But let's face it, he's very ignorant of the powers that play there, the reasons why things are happening the way they are. So I don't see anything, and the rest of the American public is hear nothing, see nothing, speak nothing, unless the Israeli lobby tells me to, at least for the politicians. So the politicians are afraid of AIPAC, and the Republicans are afraid of Trump. I don't see anything happening anytime soon.
Yeah. All right. So thank you, everybody, and have a great day.